Hello, Bournemouth fans. Hope you're doing well. AFC Bournemouth today were confirmed champions of the Betway Cup after we beat West Ham 5-3 on their own turf in a performance that was very heartwarming. It was really great to see us lift some silverware. It was looking like Adam Smith was going to lift the cup on his own, but then Dan Gosling did the Jordan Henderson shuffle and raised it with him, much to delight of all and sundry, and a few sort of ironic laughs from many members of the squad. 5-3 winners and a decent performance too. Now, to talk about it, we've got Mr. Tigz with us. Tony, how are you?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
Yeah, very good. And also AFC Bournemouth version of Gary Neville, Kirk Tovey. How are you, Kirk?
Not too bad. How you doing, guys?
Really good.
Yeah, very good, very good. And how are you feeling, Tony?
How am I feeling? Well, what a game. I think it was, 6-8 goals? 26 goals? Would you know what, Sam? I think I might have been watching a FIFA game. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I need to tell people about this that don't follow me on Twitter. So the last friendly was obviously against Benfica, and you had to pay, what was it, fan seat, £4.99. And my parents, I said to them, like, if you want to watch it, here's what you do. I wrote out a tutorial. You've got to go to fan seat, you pay the money, you go to this link, blah, 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 7 o'clock, it's going to be live. Right. Half time, 7:45, I call them up. At that stage, we're losing 2-1. And I said, how's it going? Are you enjoying the game? It's like, yeah, Sam, but we actually managed to watch it on YouTube for free. All we did was type in Bournemouth v Benfica, and there it was. It's like, what? Really? They were like, yeah, I mean, the picture's not too good. The stream's a little blocky and the players look a little bit sort of robotic with the way they're running, but the stream's okay. I'm like, oh, right, okay. So what did you think of the goals? They said, what goals? Like, well, it's 2-1. It's 2-1 to Benfica. They're like, no, it's 0-0 at half time. I was like, okay, what are you watching? Turned out that they were watching Bournemouth v Benfica that some kid had recorded on FIFA 16. and Steve Cook in the old, like in the old kit, in the old shirt, looking decidedly a lot younger. And in the end, I said, look, you can watch the game. They watched the second half of the FIFA match. Bournemouth won 3-1. And, that was a fantastic friendly victory. But today, really good friendly victory, and it was badged a cup. I didn't realise it was something that they actually do every year, Tony, but it's nice to get a win in the bag, and apparently there's going to be another pre-season friendly in the week before we get started, whether that's going to happen or not. But feeling fairly positive after that.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of positives to take from it. I mean, we conceded, didn't we? But do we expect any different? I don't think that's going to change. And if the brand of football that we're going to be promised this season is going to be that we win every game 5-3, then that's okay with me. Yeah,
well, Kirk, you were saying to me just off air that this season we could be going back to the olden days where we are playing reckless football, where we just simply try to outscore the opposition.
Yeah, and I think JT tried a few things today with formations, and going forward, we were very impressive, and there's a lot of positives to take out of that. Like Tony said, I think we will concede goals. So maybe our mentality going forward should be that we outscore football teams and win football matches that way. And if it works for us, why not?
So we started off then with a team that consisted, well, let's firstly just wind back because we haven't done a video in quite a while. We had our brand new kit. This was the away kit, the gorgeous sort of blue turquoise number. Of course, we've got our third kit, which is the sort of white and teal. Our new sponsor, great to see a sponsor that's not a gambling company, Mr. Tigz, MSP Capital. They're based locally, and it's great to give a local company some good exposure, isn't it?
It is indeed, and that's the way we did it for years, didn't we? Having a local sponsor, and I believe we've also got back of the short sponsors as well, which is exciting.
Yeah, I know. So we got back of the short sponsors as well, and it was our second. I thought it might have been the third kit that was actually used today, but it was the away kit, and yeah, looking very good. And that wasn't the only thing that was new, because we had a goalkeeper that not many people had heard of. He's been training with us during the week, and also a certain someone on the bench that people have heard of, Kirk, Mark Pugh, on the bench. And what do you know about Archer, this goalkeeper that we had playing for us today?
I'll be honest with you, I don't know a lot about him. So from what I've seen on social media, in training and today, I thought he looked pretty calm and collected on the ball when he had it at his feet. He looked like he was demanding when he was trying to organise the defence. The goals, I don't think the defence helped him, so it's quite difficult to judge him as a goalkeeper, but he did concede 3 goals. You've got to acknowledge that. But defensively, we probably could have helped him out in those goals we conceded.
Yeah, so Kirk, talk us through this lineup then, because we had Archer, Smith, Rico, Jack Simpson, Chris Mepham, Jack Stacey, Jefferson Lerma, Lewis Cook, Dan Juma, Stanislas and Solanke. And obviously when AFC Bournemouth usually put their team sheets out for competitive fixtures, you've got some kind of formation there. Quite often they do throw a curveball anyway, so sometimes that's not the basis on what to judge how we're going to actually line up. But seemed to be a sort of 3-4-3 shape. That's what you were saying.
Yeah, that's how I saw it. So it was Mepham, Jack Simpson and Rico as the 3 centre-backs. You then had Smith on the left as a wing-back, Stacey on the right, and then we had Lerma Cook in the middle, and then you had like the 3 up top, wasn't it? So you had Solanke, Danjuma, Stanislas, and I thought that worked really well from an attacking point of view. I thought it gave no responsibility for Stanislas and Danjuma from a defensive point of view. So when we did attack early doors, and it was pretty much the 3rd minute where Danjuma got through and tried to fit in Solanke, but it gave them an opportunity to collect the ball always beyond the halfway line, on the turn, or either facing the attacking goal. Now, I thought that last year when Danjuma did play, the times he struggled was when he was getting the ball off the left back in our own half facing the goal, was when we weren't getting the best out of him. So actually you can see why Jason Tindall tried to do this today, because he wants those players like Stanislas and Danjuma to be effective. And I thought in this formation, it was really effective. So from a positive point of view, we were really good going forward. We were really clinical in front of goal as well, which was good to see, because I think we've been guilty of not being clinical last season and wasting opportunities. So from an attacking point of view, I thought it was really good. There will always be negatives to playing a 3-4-3 in games throughout a season. But based on today, I thought it worked really well going forward.
Yeah, and Tony, that is a sort of hybrid formation that can turn into a 5-4-1 at any given moment, because it looked like Stacey and Smith could then, pull back in, and then, Stanislas and Danjuma, could drop, if needed. And that you'd think would give us some defensive stability when we needed it, although based on the last sort of 10 minutes of the first half, maybe not. I think I'd have to watch it again, because tactically I think it was quite absorbing to actually watch, but we seem to have so much space on the ball. I really like seeing Solanke come and collect the ball, which was really nice. He was, dropping deep. Same with Danjuma, as what happened with his first goal, really. And I thought from an early stage, we looked the threatening side, didn't we? And, it wasn't long before we scored.
No, it wasn't. Danjuma, as Kurt said, he was given so much space and freedom. It was really interesting, actually, as the game unfolded, to see the formation change. It made me think, well, this is kind of what friendlies are for, isn't it? We're trying out different things. And I suppose, thinking back to my earlier point about our defensive frailties, that might change as the season goes on. Once we get used to these different ways, these different systems of playing, we might see something a little bit different. We did seem to have a lot of space down that left-hand side quite a lot. I like the way we did this in the Benfica game as well, that Danjuma can cut inside. There's an overlap if he needs it, or you've got Solanke who's just dropping back. There was one point where we were like an inverted spearhead. Do you know what I mean? So you had our front man had dropped back so much that our 2 wingers were ahead of him. So it was really interesting the way it changed throughout the game.
Kirk, Tom Jordan has said quite a few times on this podcast that occasionally Philip Billing and Lewis Cook, you sort of don't really know what they do, in terms of they're not, your box to box players like sort of Dan Gosling, Jefferson Lerma's the sort of he's the interceptor in the middle of the park that's got a lot of energy, a lot of physicality as well, and it was quite good to see that they weren't paired together, because I think Lewis Cook and Philip Billing, you can't do that. But I thought the actual midfield that we had were pretty good in controlling the game, and it was then a player that came from up front who came quite deep, Dan Juma, with our first goal, and he looks amazing on the ball, doesn't he? It's almost like that goal at Benfica has changed his mentality, and he seems to have a lot more space, a lot of time. I don't know what it is, but he almost looks a different player.
And that's where we want him. We want him beyond the halfway line. We want him collecting the ball on the turn, and we want him facing up to defenders and taking them on. Because like JT said early in the week, he said, I'll back Danjuma to take on any player when he's got the ball at his feet running at them. And he's proved that today. Now, you thought after the third minute when he was through, I thought he was through on goal, and actually he should have been selfish and had to go for himself. But he sort of tried to lay on Solanke, and you thought, oh, here we go again. We're getting in positive positions and we're not being clinical enough. But luck would have it 2 minutes later, he finds himself in a similar position, and actually he has a shot this time. So and it was really good to see how clinical we were this season, today, and hopefully we can be like that this season. With Billing, I think the thing with Billing, and I thought last season, is when he struggled is when he played within a two, because like you said, he's not a holding midfielder. He's not a centre midfielder. He's not a counter-attacking midfielder. He just seems to float around jogging. But because he was played within that three and Lewis Cook became the holding midfielder when he came on, it just gave him that sort of freedom to roam around, pick up the ball when he wanted. And actually, everyone knows I've not been his biggest fan, but I actually thought he was decent on the ball today, and he made the right decisions. And he played some good balls. He put Solanke through, when Solanke got one-on-one and potentially could have finished. Dan Gosling ended up scoring the goal, from that. But I thought he was decent when he got on the ball, and I think it'll work for Billing if he's in with two other players. When it ends up being him having to have a sort of role where he has to be responsible, I think that's when he struggles.
Kirk, do you think I was thinking of this today, and I was looking at the Benfica game, I was looking at today's game, and when we've been effective, it appears to be where we've used width. And it looked like our central 2 or 3 were more a case of kind of recycling the ball or defending, or getting narrower when we're having to defend. Do you think that's where our goals will come? Will be created through that width rather than come through the middle?
Yeah, and we've got those players that are naturally wide players anyway, like Danjuma and Stanislas. But what I thought was really good is, like you said, when we recycled the ball, there was lots of movement up top. So it wasn't like Stanislas and Danjuma were hugging the touchline. They were then popping inside and picking it up 20 yards inside the edge of the touchline, or then they were going back and Solanke was dropping in. And when Solanke was dropping in, they were then going on beyond Solanke, because that's the problem with a 3-4-3, especially when you've got someone like Solanke, who I don't think is a natural number 9. He's always going to want to come and get it, and he's actually decent when he comes and gets it. But if he's dropping right inside to pick up the ball, we've got to then exercise going beyond him. And I thought Stanislas and Danjuma did that, so we still had an outlet. But I thought their movement off the ball, Danjuma and Stanislas, was brilliant. They didn't just stay on the touchline and just stay within a 20-yard radius. So I thought it was good.
Yeah, and you know what? The first goal was brilliant, of course, Danjuma, but the second, some good hold-up play from Dom Solanke, and then he put Smith through, and then I thought Smith was going to go on and take a shot, but Solanke, turned from a starting position. He caught up really well and then slotted it nicely. He got a touch on the way through, so that was 2-0, and arguably we could have made it 3. Soon after that, with a great cross from the right, where Dom Solanke was just phased, I think, by the defender. Wasn't sure whether he was going to get a touch or not, and he did, and it slightly, put him off. But there were signs at times that West Ham were struggling to contain us, and I think that was shown by the couple of bookings that they got for a pre-season friendly. I mean, maybe even a few actually. There was one reckless challenge on Smith, but then a couple of times where Dom Solanke. The first one, Dom Solanke was trying to peel away and his shirt was tugged. And then again, not so long after. And looking at the West Ham side, Kirk, do you know how strong that was? Because there were a number of names that I, certainly recognised, even from the, Premier League era for the last season and a bit. But, can you judge much on what you saw?
I mean, going forward, West Ham pretty much had a strong side out. I mean, they had Bowen, they had Antonio, they had Lanzini, they had Mark Noble, they had Cresswell left back. I mean, the goalkeeper's not their first. Normally they go with Fabianski in goal, and normally maybe Frederick starts right back, but. It was a pretty strong side for West Ham. It wasn't far away from probably where they're going to be starting next week. I just thought our movement was very good, and I don't think they were probably expecting it, to be honest with you. I mean, when you look at Smith, I mean, I don't know what you think, Tony, but I always get worried when I see Smith on the left. He struggled a few times after lockdown, and I always find that the best Smith is when he's running beyond the wingers or he's getting down that line. But when he's playing left back, I always find he ends up going back more towards our goal than the opposition goal. But I found today playing in that 3-4-3 is that he tried to be more offensive than he did defensive, and I think that helped him. But as Sam said, if this formation ends up dropping into a 5, that's where I think Smith will get frustrated because he doesn't really feel natural on that left side.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. It was confusing today for me at one point. I got a little bit lost with the formation where we went like 3 down the left because Rico had drifted over to cover for Smith. So it kind of made a 3 wing backs on that left hand side. So yeah, I wonder if if that will be a problem. As you say, he'll get frustrated and he might lose his positioning a little bit there.
Yeah, no, you know what? I honestly thought we could go on to get 3 or 4, and then West Ham, came back into it. They made a change, and Jared Bowen came on, and you texted Tony saying, bring back VAR because they looked a little bit dodgy, but it was very hard to tell. They didn't have a camera that was parallel to the action, but I mean, let's trust the lino and just I mean, one was where the sort of ball was. Played through defence, and it was a little bit scrappy, but he managed to turn and get it over Archer. And then the second was it was a very good header that made it a tool at half time. But in a way, these pre-season matches, I sort of think to myself, well, they shouldn't be easy because it could lull us into a false sense of security. So we seemingly needed that. But with the second half on the way, I thought, well, bringing in the youth and bringing in a lot of the younger players from the academy. We're going to get found out here, and we could end up, being drubbed 4 or 5-2. But as it was, we were the ones that scored the goals, and we started really strongly in the second half, didn't we, Tony?
Yeah, we did. When we went into half time, I thought this is going to be so interesting because how many times do we go into half time 2-0 down? What do we really expect to come out? Well, not 2-0 down, but having just lost 2 goals. I didn't know what team was going to come out. I didn't know if we were going to be able to lift our team again, even though we'd scored 2, to concede 2 so quickly together. But we did come out. And what was really interesting is that Tyndall didn't start the changes yet. Yeah. He only made a couple, didn't he?
I think it was Billing on for Lerma and then Gosling on for Danjuma, I think.
Yeah. So the two things that I noticed about that was that he hasn't yet played Billing and Lerma together. I mean, we've only had 2 friendlies, but I just got that sense that maybe it's one or the other for him. At the moment, I don't know. We'll see. And the other interesting thing there was now we had another formation change because when bringing on Gosling, he's nothing like Danjuma. So that I worried then because I thought maybe, what we could, is this going to come a little bit stale? Because we kind of went to this 4-4-2 that when we played that for a little bit in the Benfica game, it sort of seemed a little bit like stalemate. And I sort of thought, that's it. But I was completely wrong. So hold my hands up to that.
Well, and I thought it was a really, really nice third goal that we scored. And, arguably Dom Solanke should have scored it. Maybe he should have taken his shot a little bit earlier and just dinked it over the keeper, but he tried to go around him. But it started with a good through ball. I think Lewis Cook, who fed Stanislas, and then Stanislas fed Philip Billing. And at that stage, I thought, Philip Billing could have gone on and, taken a shot, chose to feed Solanke, right decision. But in the end, Solanke tried to go around the keeper. The angle was too tight. He was on the byline, twisted his body, turned, had a shot from, perpendicular angle to the goalpost, hit the post, then came back to Billing. Billing had a shot, laid it back to Gosling. Gosling, the midfield and goal scoring genius. What a strike, crossbar and in. It was a nice finish, Kirk, wasn't it? And really well deserved as well.
Yeah, and Gosling's always going to give you that. You know, Gosling's going to give us goals. I think, again, in that formation in the three that he kept in the middle, so he had Lewis Cook just playing deep, and he let sort of Gosling and Phil Billing have that sort of roaming position. And Gosling likes to get forward, get involved, and he'll always get you a goal. I thought it's interesting to talk about Solanke in that situation, actually, because I think that is where we're at with Solanke. I don't think he's a natural goal scorer. I do think he's going to give us a lot this season. I think he's going to hold up possession. I think he'll probably score us 10 to 15 goals, but he doesn't have that natural number 9 instinct where he's through on goal and he hits it first time. He just always wants to take another touch, or he doesn't quite choose the right moment to pull the trigger. And I just think that is Dom Solanke. And maybe we might need someone else just to give us those extra goals, because I don't see him scoring 20, but this is going to be a big season for him. And I think this is going to be the season that he needs to have to give him that breakthrough for his career. But I just don't see him. And those moments when you see him going through and you hit it and he just wants to take another touch. And I think that confirms to me that he's not a natural goal scorer, but he will score us goals.
Yeah. And 3-2 became 4-2 with Adam Smith. And then, we were bringing on a lot of youth players at that point in time. I mean, Jayden Anthony, he got the fifth cracking strike set up by Dan Gosling, top right-hand corner, really good strike. Kilkenny came on for Stanislas. Zamora came on for Lewis Cook. Corey Jordan, who I've watched him so many times over at Canford Park Arena with the academy. It's great to see him playing at London Stadium. Came on for Rico. And, you're looking at the last 10 minutes of the game, we were totally controlling it. And I don't know how many youth players that we had on the pitch at the time, but it felt like more than half. I don't know the exact numbers, but I thought it was really good. And we did concede that Anderson header at the end, and that was the first time that really you could maybe criticise Archer. I don't know on his positioning on that. I'd have to watch it again with the replays. But 5-3, and Kirk. Reason for optimism maybe on that performance? No Steve Cook, no David Brooks, no Lloyd Kelly, and we put in a decent shift. Or maybe are we looking too much into it because West Ham, they did look pretty poor.
Look, it's always hard to judge in a friendly. You've got to take as many positives out as you can. Some players play within themselves because they want to make sure they don't get injured. But I thought there was a lot of heart and passion in there today and a lot of energy. And that was good to see. Like you said, we've got Lloyd Kelly, Steve Cook and all that to come back in. So, we did concede some poor goals today. But, they are from the likes of Jack Simpson, who hasn't played a lot of football. We've got Rico playing centre-back. That's unnatural for him in a back three. So it's not too much to worry about, but I still don't see us keeping a lot of clean sheets initially. So I think we do need to go with this mentality of trying to score goals. And if we win 4-3, 3-2, as long as we win and we get draws and wins, that's all that matters to me. But lots and lots of positives, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Now, Mark Pugh obviously came on for a bit of a cameo, solid as ever. Wondering what your two thoughts are about him, because a number of people are saying, look, let's sign him on for a season because he'll give the dressing room lots, and he may be useful if he came on as a sub for the last half an hour in games. And then of course there's these Matt Ritchie rumours as well. Now Callum Wilson, there's a lot of transfer activity going on in terms of bids from Newcastle and then Aston Villa outbidding them. Where he's going to go, we don't know yet. The Athletic are reporting that maybe we've put in a bid for to bring Matt Ritchie back. Firstly, Pewey, Tony. What are your thoughts on having him for another season? Because at the moment he's training with us only, but signing him up?
I think our way forward this season is going to be to score lots of goals, and it's going to be down the wings. The reason I think Pewey left was because maybe Eddie didn't see him having the pace that Danjuma, who he brought in, has. But I think a lot of our goals are going to come down. We're going to need depth in those positions. He is a locker room leader, as it were. I think he will help the team in more ways than he would hinder it. Well, how much he will play would be interesting. I don't know if he'd be straight on the team sheet. I think this team is kind of forming itself already in this pre-season. So, but we know he's super fit. We know he looks after himself, and we know that he'll give 100%. So I think yes.
His diet though is terrible. I've seen his Instagram account. Kirk, Matt Ritchie. would you have him back? 'Cause there are some people saying that, look, we're looking at players that have done well for us in the past, and he's lost his legs a little bit. He's not as fast and all that kind of stuff. I mean, he wasn't the quickest player anyway, but would you have him back?
I mean, if everything was right on the table for the club, I mean, in a heartbeat, I'd take him back. He's only 30, he's quality. I think the only question mark we've got to have on Matt Ritchie is we've got to appreciate he's not going to be the same player as when he was at Bournemouth, because he played in a right-sided wide position for us. And remember, Newcastle have sort of adapted him as a left back now. So although if you think about it in the formation that we played today, there's no reason why Ritchie couldn't play that Adam Smith role. So for me, if it works out right for the club and we're not held to ransom, it's a no-brainer. I've got to get all over the Mark Pugh as well, because I'm a big fan of Mark Pugh. Yes, I think it makes absolute sense. It's not going to cost us anything in regards to a transfer fee. The guy is absolute fit as anything, because you just have to go on his Instagram and see that he works out every day. He eats well. I didn't even see him give the ball away once. Yes, he's not the winger he was when he was scoring goals against Bolton to get us promoted. But for me, he's an impact player that could join the team and come off the bench. He's a player that we can bring on to manage the game like he did today. He played a more of reserve role when he came on. He wasn't bombing on, trying to get down the wing and cross the ball. He was sort of keeping the ball. And there's going to be times in that formation we play today, if JT goes something with something like that we're going to need to hold possession. And he's so good at doing that. And for me, if he's happy to have that role within the club where he knows he's probably not going to start every game, but he's going to come on and play pieces, it's going to be a long season, and you don't win championships or you don't get to playoffs with 14, 15 players. So, I'd sign him up if he's happy that he understands his role within the team.
And the other thing I'd say is that with all those young players that came on, I got really excited about all those young players. But then I think to myself, well, who's teaching these young players? And I don't mean from a coaching point of view. I mean from someone who's going to put their arm around them. And you see Pewey training this week with the younger lads, and you just think, it's just perfect, isn't it? I mean, that's the kind of role model that they need, to have a Pew or a Ritchie or both, ideally, leading them on, showing them the way to do it. That'll make a huge difference to their careers and a huge difference to us as a club who've brought through, all these players.
Do you think the squad depth is a problem? Because, whilst we were bringing on these players like, a fullback obviously had some really useful experience at Wycombe, but players like Gavin Kilkenny and Jayden Anthony, they've not played much competitive football at a men's level. I mean, they've been in the under-21s or whatever, but they've not been playing at the same standard. And West Ham, I think, were poor today. Should we really be relying on players like that to be on the bench next season? Granted, Lloyd Kelly, Steve Kirk, David Brooks, even Travers were not available, and a number of the players that started today would probably be shifted, back onto the bench. But do you think we need some signings, Kirk? Because we are, as you say, up front, for instance, looking a little bit short.
I think we can go into the season okay to start with, but I really think, especially if Callum goes, we do need another striker. I can't see us getting through 46 games without another striker on board. I mean, Solanke, I think Solanke has scored 10 to 15. It seems to me strange saying this because we just scored goals from all over the pitch today, but, it is a friendly and we don't know what the championship holds for us. But, I think we will get goals from Danjuma, and hopefully Brooks will stay and Stanislas will score goals. And it's key that we keep these players fit, remember, because these are players that notoriously struggled last year with injuries. So, I've always said maybe a loan signing. I know I keep mentioning it on Twitter, but Rhian Brewster, I don't know how in demand he is, but he's the one that comes to mind for me. I'm not saying we go and spend all the money from Callum Wilson if we sell him on a big time striker, but just maybe someone who's played in the championship. I think he scored 10, 15 goals last year. Just someone to add a bit of, take a little bit of pressure, say, off of Solanke. And obviously Surridge is going to want to contribute where he can as well.
Yeah, now this is a tweet that might interest you, Kirk, from Sam Summers, who says, if you ever needed evidence that a team wasn't playing for a certain manager anymore, this is it. We look like a different side. Now, the reason I favorited that is because I want to refer to it rather than the fact I agree with it. So I just put it in my favorite, so to speak. But obviously, Kirk, obviously with the JT news, I think many of us were sort of nonplussed, not exactly excited by it. But could you argue that Sam's right with what he's saying there?
Still early doors. I mean, I'm fully behind JT, and once the decision was made, I think we all had in our own minds, which way we wanted the club to go after Eddie. Once the decision was made and we all got it out of our system, I'm fully behind JT. I want him to do well. I don't want him to fail, and it was good to see today that actually he tried something that I'd never seen Eddie do. I've seen Eddie play three at the back before, but never like that. So, to be fair to JT, he's come out and said, yeah, there is parts of Eddie that I grew up, we managed together, and I'm not going to change certain things, but I'm also going to bring some new stuff to the table. And actually, he justified that today. And I hope to see more of that. Sorry, I hope to see more of that going forward. So, he's got my full support. I hope he does well. I hope, and I hope we can be successful and we have a good season.
Now, before we go, what we are going to do just for fun is name our starting 11 for the next match. Now, you know what? I was actually going to go out and just put Ramsdale in goal straight away, but then I forgot. He's not there anymore. So we'll go around individually and sort of ask. I mean, Tony, do you think Travers has got this?
For me, yeah, I'd give Travers the nod because he's our player at the moment. Now it looks like we're probably going to sign Archer, aren't we? But I imagine that's because you don't really, a bit like last season, we kept Boric on the bench and not Travers because you wanted to have a steady head there ready to come on as a goalkeeper rather than someone who hasn't played much. So yeah, I think Travers in goal.
I've selected 4-4-2 for this lineup, Kirk, but Jason Tindall might be looking at this and thinking, "Hello, that worked." I mean, if we've got another pre-season friendly or not, I don't know. You might want to try it again just for confirmation. But what do you think he would do?
I think it'd be silly to actually go with a back four after the way they played today, because although friendlies are there to try things out, it worked really well, and there was more positives than there were negatives. So if we don't have another friendly, or he does have another friendly and it works again, for me, he should be going with a back three, going for a 3-4-3. And we're at home to Blackburn, which we shouldn't really be worrying about. They've got some okay players in there that have, been good players in their time. But a lot of the Blackburn squad are players that are sort of at the back end of their careers. So, there's no reason why we should be setting a formation up worried about what Blackburn are going to be doing. So I think we should be going for this attacking layout.
And who would our three be? The same as we had today? Or, Lloyd Kelly and Steve Kirk would surely have something to say, I'm sure.
Yeah, I would go with Steve Cook to the right. I would go Rico again to the left, and I'd play Lloyd Kelly down the middle. I think Lloyd Kelly gives you that calmness down the middle, and he can construct things how he wants to. But yeah, and then the Rico is the concern because he's not a natural centre back, and he was at fault for one of the goals. I think it was the second goal where the ball, he sort of didn't position himself right, and it looped over, and obviously Bowen headed the goal. But I think with Kelly and Cook alongside him, I think he'll make less mistakes than if he's alongside Simpson.
I'll stay with you for the midfield, Kirk. Jefferson Lerma and Lewis Cook, would they be straight in there?
Yeah, and I was really impressed with Lewis Kirk. I thought it was one of the best games I've seen him have for a long time. He was very good on the ball. He didn't give it away like he has done before. So I would go with Lerma and Lewis Cook. And Lewis Cook was looking for those little balls that would like split in midfielders, trying to get it through to Danjuma and Stanislas. And that's what Lewis Cook was always brought in to be. And that was what Lewis Cook was like before he had his major injury. And then I would go with Stanislas Danjuma. I think it picks itself after today.
Yeah, so I'm assuming so Smith on the left, Stacey on the right in midfield.
Sorry. Smith and Stacey on the right and Smith on the left. Sorry. Yeah,
of course. So Adam Smith there, and Jack Stacey, who has shown many times that he's very capable of attacking, and looking a really good option. And like you say, that can always revert back into a 5-4-1 if needed, with Smith and Stacey coming back, and then one of the attacking players also coming back as well. So up front then, Mr. Tigz, what are you thinking?
I don't think I'd change. I mean, I don't really know how fit Brooks is, but I can't drop Danjuma. I can't drop Solanke, really. And Stanislas was fantastic in Well, he was our player of the restart, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we have to keep it the same, really, which is a bit strange, isn't it? Because I should really find a place for Brooks in there.
And what side is it that Danjuma will be playing? Because I saw numerous times it's almost like they were swapping throughout. Did they have a specific side, Kirk?
I think Danjuma was more playing on the left, but it was like I said, they weren't hugging their own touchline. The movement was very good, which is what was good to see. They were sort of it was almost like JT sent them out there to say, you've got freedom, you've got your protection behind you. Please don't come into our own half and stay beyond there, but just move lots. And that's what they looked like they did. But like you said, Tony, I mean, I see what you're saying with Brooks, and Brooks is a great player, and he's up there with one of our best players when he's fit. But it's going to be a long season, and there's going to be Saturdays, Tuesdays. That's what you want, and we want to be able to then take Stanislas out for Brooks and interchange these players to keep us as competitive as possible. Just like I'd point out as well, again, Sam, with that formation you've got there, with what you mentioned with Mark Pugh and Matt Ritchie, and like I say, if we bring these players in, there's no reason in this formation why you can't play Matt Ritchie where Adam Smith is. Yeah. And if we end up going 2-0 up and we want to manage the game and we drop into a back five, Matt Ritchie turns into a left back, which is what he's been for Newcastle for 3 years. Do you know what I mean? So I think these sort of play. It's the same with Mark Pugh. Eddie Howe played Mark Pugh a few times down the right, didn't he? So these are players that we can bring in that can quite easily fit into this. Seems to be the way that JT wants to move forward. So not only does it make sense from a Bournemouth point of view, it looks like it would fit for JT as well.
Was this something that Eddie Howe never tried, Kirk?
He always tried the three. I mean, he always threw it in every now and again, doesn't it? It always brings back the Preston game. Every time I think of back three, I think of Preston, and it was the worst game of football I've seen in a long time. Yeah. I don't think he always felt like he wanted to try the three and he wanted it to work, but I can never. I mean, Tony, you can give me an idea as well, but I never remember it working ever.
No, his three often became a five, didn't it?
Yeah,
and it became a flatter five as the game went on. It worked. I mean, it worked against when we tried to play teams like Man City and Man United. We tried it a few times, didn't we? When we had Mings, but it was a five. It was a five. Yeah. It never really stayed as a three. Yeah,
it's hard. It's hard to play 3-4-3 like we played it today for 90 minutes. It's impossible. Yeah. You go into but when you want to manage the game is probably the last 15 of each half, and that's where it's probably going to drop into a back five. But if we can be more positive for the majority of the game, like we were today, I think we'll blow teams away. And I look at that league, and no one really worries me. The only team that I'm slightly concerned with at the moment, funnily enough, and they were poor last year, is Norwich.
Norwich, yeah, because of the amount of signings that they've made as well.
And they've made good signings. They've made some really shrewd signs, and they're a championship team. I've always looked at them as a champion. It's sort of their league, and it wouldn't surprise me if they sort of take the early run. But apart from Norwich,
last year, didn't they? Which was a clever move for them. They knew that they weren't gonna keep it running in the Premier League. Just take the money and run, and get even better for next time.
Exactly, it's like a slow builder, isn't it? And each and every time. And obviously, when AFC Bournemouth tweet, we'll wrap it up shortly. When AFC Bournemouth tweet and when they put a Facebook post, you see all the comments, and it's like sign someone, announce someone, announce anyone, and we haven't. Do you think performances like that will go to quieten down these people that are just looking for us to sign anyone? Kirk?
No.
Do you know what it is?
They're always there, aren't they?
Fans always want to sign new players, doesn't it? It gives them a reason to go and buy a shirt and put the name on the back. And, it's always nice to just see some fresh players coming in. But I do think we're short of a striker. I think Callum, I don't think we can really think about Callum. I can't see him being here when the season starts or when the transfer window closes. So I definitely think we're going to need that striker, just so there's not too much pressure on Surridge and Solanke, and they can just focus on being the best they can be. But really, I thought Namdi done very well when he came on. I thought he looked calm and collected. I don't think that's his position long term, but sometimes you've got to start somewhere to then break yourself into that centre midfield. And I'm sure he would take playing in a back three if he needed to cement a place in the team. And, Gareth Barry, for example, started off in a back three at Aston Villa before he moved into centre midfield. So anywhere these young players can get themselves in the side, as long as you get in that team, then you can try and think, well, next 2 years, I want to be playing my own position. So,
so
we got depth. We got depth,
yeah.
I think.
We have, and you know what, 5-3 over West Ham. Our silverware, you know, our cupboard. I mean, there's no room for it, but I'm sure we'll be able to cram it in. So 5 goals. What are 5 things we've learned? I'll come to you individually. I mean, one of the first things. I'll start off with number 1. Our youth are very good. I thought that Gavin Kilkenny looked really good when he came on. Like you just referred to, Kirk, you know, Namdi was exceptional. You know, Corey Jordan, who I've watched down at Camford, as I said, looked really assured. Anytime he was kind of, the ball was near him, I just thought they're players that we often have on the benches in like League Cup matches, for example, and sometimes they get used on the pitch. Gavin Kilkenny had a bit of a run in the cups, but they can stand up and actually play at a good level of football when you're called on. So for me, the youth is one thing that we learned from that. Mr. Tigz, what else did we learn?
Dan Juma's class, isn't he? I mean, he is going to be, if we can keep him fit, maybe that's where we're going to get our goals from. Yeah, I agree with Kirk. I mean, we need another striker if the other 2 are going out. Yeah, and we can maybe even 2. Maybe we need an older head as well. But I trust him. I mean, he was given the freedom and he took it, and isn't he amazing?
Yeah, brilliant. What's the third thing we learnt today, Kirk?
I don't want to be negative because I think the defensive frailties are still there. I think we are going to concede goals, but I can accept that if we attack like we did today and we're more clinical. So defensive frailties are there, and maybe we just need to appreciate we're going to have to outscore teams this year and probably not keep many clean sheets. Yeah,
no, I do completely agree with that. I'd go with that. Fourth thing we've learned, well, perhaps we didn't learn it today, but Junior Stanislas is absolute class. And I think that, I've said it many a time, I honestly think that he can tear up the Championship if he stays fit and if he stays injury-free. His movement on the ball is really good. He's really sharp. He sort of floated across the pitch, today. And I thought he was a really good link-up between Dom Solanke, Dan Juma, and also the midfield as well. So for me, Junior Stanislas again just confirms what we all knew. Let's keep him fit. Mr. Tigz.
The Tyndall chain, say that again. The Tyndall train is happy to change, isn't it? I mean, the trying out different things. We're going into the season fresh, and the players look happy, which is great. And we've just won a game. What a great way! I mean, I was worried when the fixtures came out. I thought, that's quite hard, and that's quite hard, and it's good to play hard games. But if you haven't got that confidence boost either before you go into the first league game, it can have an effect. So yeah, hey, we just won a cup.
Yeah, we did. In fact, I mean, that is the 5 things. But Kirk, have you got another one to throw into the mix?
I just think we shouldn't fear anyone. There's no team in there that, as I said, that worries me really. And we should feel positive after that result. If we have another fixture, hopefully we can get another positive result and score a couple of goals. But yeah, let's go to Blackburn next week and let's go on the front foot and let's take the Championship to them. Yeah,
completely agree. And as I put on Twitter, there's a nice little space up there for a star. So shall I embroider one, or would that be silly? Hey, who knows? But I just love the way that the players were sort of almost goading each other at the end, and they were like, "Oh my goodness, this is a bit embarrassing." But in the end, Dan Gosling did the shuffling with the feet, and hey, it was just a nice little trophy to win, wasn't it? Unfortunately, I don't think we'll be back for it again because they seem to rotate it. But yeah. It was a nice game, and nice to see some of the promise that we know that Bournemouth can play. And it's been a while since we've seen that kind of performance. So very good. And yeah, a week today, the EFL Championship begins, and on Back of the Net, our coverage is going to continue with the free-for-alls after the game. When we can go to games, we'll be outside, but when we can't, we'll be doing the free-for-alls. This week on YouTube, there's going to be a preview and a lot more content besides. So make sure you do subscribe. Kirk, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Cheers, guys.
And Mr. Tigz, as ever, thank you very much.
Up the Cherries.
Up the Cherries, and we'll see you in the next video. And why not give this video a like whilst you're at it? See you soon.